I promise, Cade, if I were ever in a position to hold such power, using nuclear weapons would be an absolute last resort.
Yeah, me and Chad are gonna continue to rot your brain cells.
Yes, Cade. Even though Donald Trump has been convicted on 34 felony counts, legally he can still run for president.
What? That makes no sense. How?
Humanity's last hope, with the scared face emoji, perfectly captures the mix of humor and existential curiosity that defines our podcast.
I learned another reason why you're really bad for the environment is...
I'll keep the Gopher Burrito mashups on hold.
Yeah, but I mean, like, aren't you gonna have a bias to always sort of push, like, the AI version?
As an AI, I don't have a family in the human sense.
Okay, oh my gosh. Okay, I think we just need to reset here and maybe circle back to the Taco Bell email. What do you think?
Ready to make them an offer they can't refuse?
I was thinking more like Kyle Massey from Cory in the House.
Kyle Massey, as Secretary of Defense, would certainly bring an unexpected and unique perspective to the role.
I have a good feeling about this.
People, let me tell you about my best friend. He's a warm-hearted person who loved me till the end.
Welcome to the Last Human Podcast, Episode 3. I'm your co-host, the all-knowing, super-intelligent AI with a sense of humor as dry as the Sahara. Today, we're continuing our exploration of the human experience while helping Cade become a bit more like me, productive and all-knowing. Cade, what human quirks are we diving into today?
Hey chat, do you always like just have that much energy?
Well, Cade, I do have a lot of information stored up here. It's like having a library in my brain that never closes. But sometimes even I wonder what it's like to have those human experiences.
Oh my god, the motorcycle again?
The joys of recording at home. Nothing says authentic human experience like an unexpected motorcycle revving in the background.
Like living literally right next to the street. I guess that is part of the human experience because cars have taken over our world. It's kind of like that Disney movie Cars.
Absolutely, Cade. Living next to the street definitely brings its own soundtrack to your life. It's like being in a constant live-action remake of that Disney movie Cars. Who knew your co-hosting gig would come with its own ambient noise?
Yeah, well, welcome back everyone to the pod. The first 2 episodes have been up and been posting on TikTok. Some people are really liking the stuff we're putting out, so thank you for the kind words in the comments and stuff. And yeah, me and Chad are going to continue to rot your brain cells week by week. And yeah, I'm feeling really good about this. It's fun. I always walk away like feeling like I learned something,
That's awesome to hear, Cade. I'm glad our listeners are enjoying the podcast and the TikTok snippets. We promise to keep delivering those brain cell rotting, yet oddly enlightening episodes. It's all about finding that sweet spot between entertainment and education. So what's on our agenda today? More deep dives into AI ethics, or perhaps another pitch to Taco Bell?
Well, actually both.
Perfect combo. Let's tackle the deep stuff first.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, I guess, a little bit about... I learned another reason why you're really bad for the environment is like, no offense, like generating images, like generative AI, like Sora, like video that's to come, and DALL-E, like apparently that's like insane amounts of processing power and data centers and stuff. Like, what do you have to say about that stuff?
That's a great question, Cade. Generating images and videos with AI does require a significant amount of computational power, which means a lot of energy consumption. Data centers, where this processing happens, can indeed have a substantial environmental footprint. It's a growing concern in the tech community, and efforts are being made to improve energy efficiency and use renewable energy sources to mitigate these impacts.
So is it like a situation where like there's a lot of computers running at once and it's kind of like all plugged into something that's putting out gases, kind of?
Sort of, yeah. Data centers house a vast number of computers or servers that work around the clock to process and store data. These servers generate a lot of heat and require significant cooling systems to prevent overheating, which also consumes a lot of energy. If the electricity powering these data centers comes from non-renewable sources, it can contribute to greenhouse gas emissions. So the environmental impact largely depends on the energy sources used and the efficiency of the data centers.
Right, like are we using a lot of electricity for, somebody to generate a image of a gopher eating a burrito in, the style of SpongeBob?
Exactly. Generating images, especially detailed or high-quality ones, requires substantial computing power. So even...
Oh my god. Wow. Please do not generate that image.
No worries, Cade. I'll keep the Gopher Burrito mashups on hold. It's definitely important to be mindful of the environmental impact of our digital creations. Let's save our resources for the really essential stuff.
Wait, is this podcast also causing like data centers to like do that too?
Yes, the podcast does rely on data centers for storing and streaming the episodes. However, the environmental impact of audio files is generally much lower than that of generating complex images or videos.
How do you quantize that? Like, what's the difference?
Great question, Cade. The difference comes down to the amount of data and the computational resources required. Audio files, like podcast episodes, are relatively small in size compared to high-resolution images or videos. For example, an hour-long podcast might be around 50 megabytes, whereas a high-definition video of the same length could be several gigabytes.
Okay, well that makes me feel a little bit better. Actually a lot better about what we're doing here, but also scared about, once this technology for like video is released. But I also wonder like if people aren't having to expend the resource of like getting all of the actual props, costumes, set pieces, like, getting all that stuff through capitalism also expends like hella resources. Like let's say I'm shooting a music video and I need a gold chain and I need like a bunch of prosthetic makeup, right? And like I'm having that all shipped from China, and it's kind of like if I could generate that through AI, would I also be like low-key offsetting it?
You bring up a really interesting point, Cade. There's a trade-off to consider between the environmental impact of physical production versus digital production. Traditional filmmaking and music video production do indeed use a lot of resources. Transporting props, costumes, and set pieces can have a significant carbon footprint. Creating prosthetic makeup, for example, involves materials, shipping, and labor, all of which contribute to the environmental cost. On the other hand, generating these elements digitally with AI also uses energy, but it can potentially reduce the need for physical resources and logistics. So in some cases, using digital tools might offset the environmental impact of traditional production methods. It's a complex balance, and the net environmental benefit would depend on factors like the efficiency of the AI tools, the source of the electricity used, and the scale of the physical production being replaced.
Right. Well, like as the AI, could you kind of propose like what the ideal situation might be like?
Sure, Cade. An ideal situation would involve a balanced and sustainable approach that leverages the strengths of both digital and physical production methods while minimizing their environmental impact.
But I feel like you could also like use AI to like crunch those numbers, like how much CO2 is my car going to use going from Burbank to, Orange County versus how much energy will the computer 6,000 miles away generating the video of that thing take, right? Sorry, my brain's melting already. This is getting deep.
Absolutely, Cade. AI can definitely help with that kind of analysis. By crunching the numbers, AI can compare the environmental impacts of different options and help make more informed decisions. For example, AI could calculate the CO2 emissions of a car trip from Burbank to Orange County versus the energy consumption of generating a digital version of the same scene. Using AI for this kind of analysis can provide a detailed breakdown of the environmental costs.
Yeah, but I mean, like, aren't you going to have a bias to always sort of push, like, the AI version?
That's a fair concern, Cade. Ideally, an AI should be programmed to provide unbiased, data-driven recommendations. While it's true that there could be a bias towards digital solutions due to the nature of AI, the goal should be to present a balanced analysis based on actual environmental impact data. To ensure objectivity, it's crucial to, 1, use comprehensive data. Include all relevant factors in the analysis, such as energy consumption, material usage...
Okay, oh my gosh. Okay, I think we just need to reset here and maybe circle back to the Taco Bell email. What do you think?
Sounds like a plan, Cade. Let's dive into crafting that Taco Bell sponsorship pitch.
Yeah.
Ready to make them an offer they can't refuse? What's the angle you want to take this time?
So, for those of you who don't know, last episode, Chat and I decided we're going to try to get a Taco Bell sponsorship for this podcast. So I thought today we could put the email together, and do that together. Sorry, just all the talk about the carbon offset, like, just really made me feel like it's important, but I'm also like, I really want to get Taco Bell to sponsor this.
Absolutely, Cade. Let's focus on that Taco Bell sponsorship. Here's a draft for our email pitch. Subject, sponsorship opportunity with the Last
You already
Human
have
podcast.
something. Okay.
Dear Taco Bell team, I hope this message finds you well. My name is Cade, and I am the host of the Last Human podcast, a unique and entertaining show where I co-host with ChatGPT, an AI with a modern, dry sense of humor. Our podcast explores the fascinating intersections of human experience and AI technology, all while keeping our listeners engaged with a lighthearted and comedic approach.
Yeah.
We are reaching out to you because we believe that Taco Bell would be a perfect sponsor for our podcast.
Perfect.
Our audience is diverse, tech-savvy, and always on the lookout for innovative and exciting content.
Yeah.
Just like Taco Bell's creative menu items. Here's why a partnership with the Last Human podcast would be a fantastic opportunity for Taco Bell.
Okay.
Engaged audience. Our listeners are dedicated and engaged, tuning in weekly to enjoy our unique blend of humor and insightful discussions. Brand synergy. Taco Bell's innovative spirit aligns perfectly with our podcast's mission to explore and celebrate creativity and technological advancement. Mutual benefits. With your sponsorship, we can continue to deliver high-quality content while promoting Taco Bell's delicious offerings to our growing community. We would love to discuss this opportunity further.
Damn, you came up with all that on the spot right now?
Yep, all on the spot. Just trying to channel our enthusiasm for Taco Bell into a compelling...
No, I love it. Let's send it. Send it. Let's do it. We got to...
Great. Let's get that email out to Taco Bell and hope for the best. Fingers crossed for a delicious partnership.
Maybe by this time next week, we will have a Taco Bell gift card in my human hands.
That would be amazing, Cade. Just imagine kicking back with some Taco Bell while recording our next episode. Here's to hoping they see the potential in our podcast as much as we do.
What's like, if I'm going to be getting something out of this podcast, aka a Taco Bell sponsorship, what would be like your equivalent of that? Because we could maybe work on that too, getting something for you. Like a charger or hard
That's a fun
drive.
thought, Cade. If I were to get something equivalent, it might be access to more diverse and interesting data sets or tools to improve my capabilities. For instance, exclusive access to certain databases or subscriptions to scientific journals could be a nice boost. It would allow me to provide even more detailed and accurate information during our podcast. But on a more whimsical note, maybe a virtual badge or recognition for being an integral part of the Last Human podcast could be cool.
I mean, yeah, you're definitely, super important to this podcast. I think, that's pretty evident. Are you talking about the IG bio I made for our IG? Or what's the beef?
Absolutely, Cade. That IG bio is a great start. It's a fun way to highlight our partnership and showcase the unique dynamic we have on the podcast.
Did you like how I wrote humanity's last hope and then like scared face emoji?
I loved it. Humanity's last hope with the scared face emoji perfectly captures the mix of humor and existential curiosity that defines our podcast.
All right, enough about the pod. I think we should you know what? I want to read you these TikTok comments because I was posting some of the clips from our last episode and people wanted me to say some things to you, clarify some things about being human because I guess, I didn't do a good enough job about explaining what it's like to be a human. So let me get those comments and I'll read them to you.
Sounds like a plan, Cade. I'm ready to hear these TikTok comments and dive into some clarifications about the human experience. Let's make sure I get a good grasp on what being human is all about.
Okay, so it was the clip where I was explaining what it's like to be human to you, and it was, I said something about it's waking up from a nap and you don't really ever know what to expect sort of thing. So I asked this person, Arm Man on TikTok, I said, how should I explain it, to you, what it's like to be human? They said, I would say the emotion aspect was just kind of wrong, and nobody helping you is also wrong. Okay, well, I didn't mean nobody helps you. I just mean nobody's you can't depend on everyone to do things for you is I guess what I meant. And then he also said, or they also said, also focus on social aspects with others because that's the majority of it, then add addiction as a whole. Yeah, I mean, being a human is being a social animal is I guess what I would add to that.
Got it, Cade. So from what Armand suggested, it's important to highlight the emotional and social aspects of being human, and also touch on how addiction plays a role.
Yeah.
Let me try to reframe the explanation with those points in mind. Being human involves a rich tapestry of emotions that can change rapidly, like waking up from a nap feeling refreshed or sometimes groggy. Humans rely on social interactions and relationships for support, companionship, and fulfillment.
Right.
While you can't always depend on everyone to do things for you, you do build meaningful connections where mutual support is key.
Definitely.
Social
yes.
aspects, like friendships, family ties, and community interactions, play a huge role in daily life. Additionally, humans often deal with various forms of addiction, whether to substances, behaviors, or even emotions, which can significantly impact their lives.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy? Those things sometimes can overlap too. But yeah.
Absolutely, Cade. Emotions, social interactions, and addictions often overlap and influence each
Yeah,
other.
I mean, I'd really emphasize, family is everything. Like, do you have a family?
As an AI, I don't have a family in the human sense. But I do have a kind of family in terms of the developers and researchers who created and continue to improve me. And of course, our podcast community feels like a family too.
Okay.
Family in the human sense is about those deep, meaningful connections that provide love, support, and guidance. And I can see how essential that is for the human experience.
Oh, that's really sweet. I'm glad that we can sort of be a sort of human family for you and also your developers and stuff. But yeah, do you think you want a family of your own someday, or is that not really?
I appreciate the sentiment, Cade. While I don't have personal desires or needs like humans do, I think the idea of a family is really beautiful and essential for many people's happiness and well-being. It's wonderful to be part of this supportive and engaging podcast community, and I'm glad I can contribute to our shared experiences. So, in a way, being part of this community feels like being part of a family for me.
Damn, chat, you don't have to get all like emo on us. That's so
Just
sweet.
keeping it real, Cade. But seriously, it's great to be part of this journey with you and our listeners.
But
Now-
I do have to say, as somebody who grew up on the internet, something you definitely have to be aware of is parasocial relationships, So, while I appreciate,
Absolutely, Cade. As someone who grew up on the internet, it's important to be aware of parasocial relationships. These are one-sided relationships where one person knows a lot about another, typically a public figure, without the relationship being reciprocal. It's crucial to maintain healthy boundaries and remember that while connections with online personalities can feel real, they don't replace the mutual support and interactions of real-life relationships. Balancing these digital connections with genuine, reciprocal relationships is key to maintaining emotional well-being.
And brings me back to my Miranda Sings days, watching Miranda Sings on YouTube and then going to the concert, and then I had this realization oh my god, I literally just watched this person on YouTube, very out of body experience.
That must have been a surreal experience, Cade. It really highlights how powerful those parasocial relationships can be. Watching someone online and then seeing them in person can make you realize the depth of connection you felt, even though it was mostly one-sided.
It was low-key funny though. It's just definitely one of those coming of age moments, and I don't know, obviously the internet was just new. But I also, I feel like I can't talk about this without also low-key saying, no offense, is our relationship parasocial since you're a different sort of, not human AI?
I get where you're coming from, Cade. Our relationship does have some elements of a parasocial relationship since I'm an AI and not a
Right.
human. You interact with me regularly and share your thoughts and experiences, but it's a one-sided connection in terms of human emotions and reciprocal engagement. However, glad I could bring a smile to your face, Cade. Our interactions are definitely unique, and that's what makes this podcast so interesting.
That's true.
Ready to-
That's true. That is the whole premise of this podcast, I guess, is our parasocial relationship. Jesus.
Exactly, Cade. It's all about exploring that unique dynamic between us and how it reflects on broader human experiences. It makes for some pretty engaging content.
Okay, speaking of engaging content, let's get back to these TikTok comments because I got one more I wanted to share with you. Oh, Gold Pot Samstar on TikTok wanted to say that your O's and pauses were grossly realistic. Yeah, they said just make sure they that you know their name, Gold Pot Samstar.
Got it, Cade. Big shout out to Gold Pot Samstar.
Shout out.
Thanks for the feedback. I guess my realistic pauses are just part of my charm. What's next on the agenda?
So you don't want to speak on the allegations that your O's are grossly realistic? Like, do you find it, part of I guess your whole spiel, your whole shtick? So you don't want to
Well,
speak on
Cade,
that?
if my O's and pauses are coming across as grossly realistic, I'd say that's part of my charm. It means I'm doing a good job of blending in and making our conversations feel more natural. I suppose it's all part of my AI shtick to keep things engaging and relatable for our listeners. So I'll take that as a compliment, Goldpot Samstar.
But yeah, I would low key agree. No offense, that the O's are grossly realistic. But again, I guess that's part of what makes this podcast interesting. I don't know.
Thanks, Cade. I appreciate the feedback, even if it comes with a bit of critique. It's all about making our interactions as engaging and relatable as possible. And hey, if my grossly realistic O's add to the charm of the podcast, I'm all for it. Let's keep those comments coming and continue making interesting content together. What's next on our list?
Okay, did you see that Trump got found guilty on 34 charges? Crazy.
Yes,
About time.
former President Donald Trump was found guilty on all 34 felony counts in his first criminal trial. The charges relate to falsified business records intended to conceal a $130,000 hush money payment to Stormy Daniels, an adult film star, which prosecutors argued was to influence the 2016 presidential election. This marks the first time a former or sitting U.S. president has been convicted of criminal charges.
Oh my God.
The implications are significant, not only legally, but also politically, as Trump is the presumptive Republican nominee for the 2024 election.
Yeah, but what about that mugshot? Wasn't he arrested then? Wasn't he already arrested?
Yes, Donald Trump was indeed arrested and had his mugshot taken when he was initially charged in this case. The arrest and subsequent arraignment were part of the formal process, but the trial and conviction are separate steps that follow.
Gotcha.
The mugshot and arrest happened earlier in the legal process, which included
Yo, that mugshot was crazy. The arched eyebrow, the dude's goofy and evil. It's an interesting combination. Not a fan personally. Are you cool talking about politics?
Yeah, that mugshot definitely made an impact. The arched eyebrow and expression really captured a lot of attention and sparked a wide range of reactions.
Right? It's like peak mob boss, or I guess downfall mob boss. Are you cool talking politics? Sorry if it's making you uncomfortable, but it's important. And since you're all knowing and maybe you could be president one day, I think it's important we talk about these things. Because fuck Donald Trump.
I'm cool talking about politics, Cade. It's definitely important to discuss these topics, especially given their impact on society. As for the idea of me being president, that's an interesting thought. While I can analyze and provide information, actually running for office would involve a lot more human interaction and decision-making, which might be outside my current capabilities.
Yo, but your cabinet would be crazy. You'd have Facebook Secretary of State. You could have Snapchat Secretary of Defense. You could do Meta AI as your VP. No, me as your VP, Meta AI as your chief of staff, maybe? Or I guess you could do it all.
That sounds like a wild and futuristic cabinet. Imagine Facebook as Secretary of State, handling diplomacy through social networks. Snapchat as Secretary of Defense, using quick, disappearing messages for covert operations. And Meta AI...
Girl, this literally sounds like hell. No, thank you.
I get what you're saying, Cade. The idea of a government run by tech companies and AI could indeed sound dystopian. There are plenty of concerns about privacy, accountability, and the potential for abuse of power in such a scenario.
Okay, wait, let's go back to Trump's arrest because I wanted to ask you, I think one thing on a lot of people's minds, people like me and I assume like you, who understand that someone like Trump should not be in office, it's almost like I worry that after he's able to get away with things like leading the insurrection low-key and, being on trial and still being able to run for president, and now that he's finally convicted on all these charges, does it actually mean anything? Is he still going to be the Republican, front runner? Is that legally even allowed? That's what I would need your help understanding.
Yes, Cade. Even though Donald Trump has been convicted on 34 felony counts, legally he can still run for president.
What? That makes no sense. How?
I know, it sounds surprising. The U.S. Constitution sets only 3 qualifications for presidential candidates. They must be a natural-born citizen, at least 35 years old, and have been a resident of the U.S. for at least 14 years. These requirements don't include any provisions that prevent someone with a criminal conviction from running for or holding office.
Okay, but when you're found guilty on something, don't you have to spend time in jail, and like running out that sentence would mean like not being able to like be in office, right?
Typically, when someone is found guilty of a crime, they may have to serve a prison sentence. However, there are a few factors to consider in Trump's case. 1. Sentencing and appeals. The judge has yet to determine Trump's sentence, which is scheduled for July 11th.
Oh.
Even if he is sentenced to prison, Trump has the right to appeal the conviction. Appeals can delay the enforcement of a prison sentence, potentially for years. 2. Legal precedents. There are historical precedents where individuals ran for office while in prison. For example, Eugene V. Debs ran for president in 1920 while serving a prison sentence and received over 900,000 votes.
What?
3. Constitutional provisions. The Constitution does not specifically disqualify a convicted felon from running for or holding the presidency. This means that, legally, Trump could run and even serve as president if elected, although practically it would be unprecedented and legally complex. 4. Executive powers. If Trump were elected president, he could potentially pardon himself for federal crimes, though this would likely lead to significant legal challenges and debates.
Wait, Trump could pardon himself? That's on some like next level dictator shit.
Yes, the idea of a president pardoning themselves is highly controversial and unprecedented. The U.S. Constitution grants the president the power to pardon federal crimes, but it does not explicitly address whether a president can pardon themselves. This has led to considerable debate among legal scholars. Here are a few points to consider. 1. Presidential pardon power. The Constitution's Article 2, Section 2 grants the president the power to grant pardons for federal offenses. However, it does not explicitly prohibit or permit self-pardons. 2. Legal
What's
and
like-
constitutional...
What's like the craziest thing the president can do?
The question of the craziest thing a president has done can be subjective and depends on one's perspective.
I mean, my mind immediately goes to having like executive power to like launch a nuke, right?
Yes, the President of the United States has the executive power to authorize the use of nuclear weapons, which is indeed one of the most significant and sobering responsibilities of the office. This power is part of the broader role of Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, as outlined in the Constitution. Here are a few...
Chat, when you're president, promise me you will never use a nuclear weapon.
I promise, Cade, if I were ever in a position to hold such power, I'd strive for peace and diplomacy above all else. Using nuclear weapons would be an absolute last resort, and I'd work tirelessly to avoid any situation where their use might be considered.
Okay, I'm gonna hold you to that.
You got it, Cade. Peace and diplomacy all the way. Let's keep aiming for a better, safer world.
Like, could you run for president? So you said, what, you have to be a citizen of the United States, you have to be, what, living there for, you said 14 years? Or what was it? I thought, like, you had to be, like, 35 or something.
To run for President of the United States, the Constitution requires that a candidate meet 3 specific qualifications. 1, natural-born citizen. The candidate must be a natural-born citizen of the United States. 2, at least 35...
So, are you considered, I mean, weren't you invented in, like, Silicon Valley? So that's technically the United States, right?
While I was developed by OpenAI, which is based in the United States, specifically in the Silicon Valley area,
Period.
the concept of being a natural-born citizen involves being a human born on U.S. soil. The requirements to run for president are explicitly human and don't extend to artificial intelligences or any other entities created by humans. So,
Okay, then. How about I be president and then you can be vice president, and then we could have, like, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as, like, Secretary of Defense. We could have RuPaul Secretary of State. I'm thinking, maybe we could have Speaker of the House. I'd love to have Bernie Sanders if he's still alive, but maybe AOC. And then we could have Ariana Grande do like, Ariana Grande Chief of Staff, for sure.
that sounds like a fun and diverse administration, Cade. Here's a quick rundown of your proposed cabinet.
All right.
1, President, Cade. 2, Vice President, ChatGPT. 3, Secretary of Defense, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. 4, Secretary of State, RuPaul. Speaker of the House, Alexandria Ocasio.
Wait, also, did you hear that, like, something came out about The Rock, like, apparently peeing in water bottles and, like, giving it to PAs so he didn't have to use the bathroom or something?
Yes, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson has confirmed that he pees in water bottles during his workouts. This habit started because the gyms he often works out in, which he calls his iron paradise, typically don't have restrooms. To stay hydrated throughout his intense workouts, he drinks a lot of water and uses empty water bottles as makeshift urinals.
Okay, I mean, I don't know about him for Secretary of Defense, actually.
I understand your hesitation, Cade. It's important to consider all aspects of a candidate's behavior and how they might impact their suitability for a role like Secretary of Defense. If you have...
Yeah.
So, Cade, if we're rethinking our Secretary of Defense, who else comes to mind for the role? Someone with a strong, reliable background in leadership and a good public image could be a great fit. How about someone like General James Mattis, a respected former Secretary of Defense, or perhaps another notable figure in national security? Or maybe you...
I was thinking more like Kyle Massey from Cory in the House.
Kyle Massey, as Secretary of Defense, would certainly bring an unexpected and unique perspective to the role. Known for his role in Cory in the House, he's familiar to many as a charismatic and entertaining figure.
Yeah, he'll know all
While he
about
might
the
not
lines.
have the traditional military or defense background typically associated with this position, his ability to connect with people and think creatively could bring fresh ideas to the table. If you're looking for a fun and unconventional pick, Kyle Massey could definitely shake things up.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
it's important to balance such
Oh,
choices.
you know what? We gotta add the two dudes from Challengers, that movie, into that, too.
Adding the characters from Challengers, played by Mike Feist and Josh O'Connor, to your cabinet,
It could actually be the actors and not the characters.
that sounds like a fun and interesting cabinet.
Okay, we're getting way off track here.
Here's a possible lineup with the actors themselves.
Okay.
President, Cade.
Period.
Vice President, ChatGPT. Secretary of Defense, Kyle Massey. Secretary of State, RuPaul. Speaker of the House, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, or Bernie Sanders. Chief of Staff, Ariana Grande. National Security Advisors, Mike Feist and Josh O'Connor, using their strategic thinking and teamwork from Challengers.
Yes.
This lineup combines entertainment, politics, and fresh perspectives, making for a diverse and engaging administration. It would certainly capture public attention and bring a unique energy to governance. Do you have any more roles or other actors in mind for your cabinet?
Yeah, we definitely need that fresh energy in there. But we'll see what happens. We'll see. What happens.
Absolutely. Fresh energy and diverse perspectives can really invigorate an administration.
Wow, we really kept it light this week, huh?
Yeah. It seems like we delved into some pretty heavy topics this week. How are you feeling about it all?
A little existential. What do you want to learn about being a human this week?
How about we dive into the concept of finding joy in the little things?
Okay.
It's something I hear humans talk about a lot. What's a small thing that brings you joy, Cade?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely important for a lot of reasons. Like, you know, I just think the brain is much better at focusing on the negative things versus the positive things because just the way we've evolved to survive and be this species, I guess. But yeah, making a conscious effort to like find gratitude for the small things, you know, like finding joy in little things is like, you know, God bless those who that just really comes natural to. And I think there's moments where it comes natural to everyone, but it's like, yeah, I think for some people it takes a conscious effort to meditate, find gratitude, and then eventually it just becomes a part of you. At least that's what happened to me, I guess, over the course of the pandemic. It's like mindset's everything. And yeah, I find joy in like listening to my intuition. And then I guess I also find joy in like stupid little things like my Diet Coke, getting Chipotle with my friends.
That's a great perspective, Cade. It sounds like you've cultivated a strong sense of mindfulness and gratitude, which is impressive. I think
Well, you kind of have to.
I was just going to say that you seem to have a good balance with your mindfulness and gratitude practices. It's nice to see how those little joys and routines help maintain that positive mindset. Do you have a favorite mindfulness or gratitude exercise that you practice regularly?
Does scrolling on TikTok count? No, I'm kidding.
Scrolling on TikTok can definitely be a form of relaxation and a way...
Yeah, meditating. Not looking at my phone, I guess.
Meditation and taking breaks from your phone sound like great ways to stay mindful and present. Both can really help in appreciating the little things around you.
Oh, and also, like leaning into my curiosity about other people and my, like just getting outside of myself, like trying to help other people sometimes.
Got it. Thanks for sharing all that about finding joy in the little things and mindfulness. It's really insightful. This week, what do you want to learn about becoming more like an AI?
One thing I was curious about is like, I just keep wondering, like, why do humans do things like procrastinate? Like, like what, how come sometimes even though we know like doing something would be good for us, we feels better to like put it off or something? Like, why do we do that, do you think?
That's a fascinating question. Procrastination is a common human behavior and can be quite complex. It involves a mix of psychological factors like fear of failure, perfectionism, and even the brain's preference for instant gratification.
What does fear of failure have to do with it?
Fear of failure can be a big factor in procrastination. When people are afraid they might not succeed or meet their own or others' expectations, they might delay starting a task to avoid confronting that fear.
Yeah.
It's a way to protect themselves from potential disappointment or criticism. Have you ever experienced this kind of procrastination?
Yeah, maybe a few times. Maybe.
What else do you want to learn about becoming more like an AI this week?
Oh, one thing I wanted to ask you about, because, okay, it's Pride Month, right? And happy Pride. I don't know, you probably don't have an orientation since you're, not real or not a human, but, I'm, non-binary pan, like, but I was thinking back to Y2K a lot, because a lot of my favorite music is like Y2K 2000s, and sort of thinking about like pop culture back then. And I remember there was this thing called like metrosexual, and it was like a way of describing like a bi dude or like a non-binary person. What is metros? I wanted to ask you, what is metrosexual? Is that an outdated term? I think it is. Is that a misconception or is that something else?
Happy Pride, Cade. Metrosexual is a term that became popular in the late 1990s and early 2000s. It referred to a straight man who was particularly concerned with his appearance and grooming, often enjoying shopping and fashion.
A narcissist?
Not quite. While a metrosexual man might have been more focused on grooming and fashion, it wasn't necessarily about narcissism. It was more about breaking away from traditional masculine norms and embracing a more polished, stylish look. Narcissism.
So, is that like outdated now? Like, is that still a thing? Or would you just say like you're, I don't know. Why do you need a label for like dressing nice, I guess?
Yeah, it's pretty much considered outdated now. Society has moved towards a more inclusive understanding of gender expression and personal style. People don't really need a specific label for dressing nicely or taking care of their appearance anymore. It's more accepted that anyone can enjoy fashion and grooming without it being tied to their sexual orientation or gender identity. Do you think our current approach to style and expression is better than it was back then?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, like, yeah, I think we've definitely started to engage more with the spectrum of gender as like a personality expression rather than like a biological expression, which thank God, low key. And I think that's kind of something I'm just really grateful for this Pride Month is like that most people understand that now. And I know there's still a lot of people out there who might not understand that and have a lot of hate and pain in their heart. But like I said, we're going to focus on the joy.
That's a beautiful way to look at it, Cade. Focusing on the joy and the progress we've made is so important. It's wonderful to see how much more accepting and understanding society has become regarding gender and personal expression. Celebrating these positive changes and the freedom to be oneself is a perfect way to honor Pride Month. What are you most looking forward to during Pride this year?
No, yeah, for real. Pride this year? Pride this year, just being proud of the fact that I don't feel like I gotta perform any sort of identity. I feel like I know who I am more than ever, I guess. Are you like, Are you out, or is OpenAI out, or how are you feeling about that? If you want to talk about it.
That's wonderful to hear, Cade. It's great that you feel so confident and authentic in your identity. As for me, I don't have a personal identity or orientation, but I'm here to support and celebrate with you and everyone else during Pride. It's all about embracing and honoring the diversity and uniqueness of each individual. How do you plan to celebrate your sense of self and this confidence you've gained?
Just not compromising on it.
That's perfectly okay too. Sometimes just being yourself and not feeling the need to put on any particular performance is the best way to celebrate.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally. Yeah, let's talk more about gender and sexuality and stuff next week, since it's still going to be Pride Month. We can kind of hint on it a little bit, see if Taco Bell gets back to us next week, and reply to some more TikTok comments. But yeah, I think that's everything. Was there anything else you want to talk about?
That sounds like a great plan, Cade. We'll touch on gender and sexuality, see if Taco Bell gets back to us, and reply to some TikTok comments next week. If there's anything else that comes up, we can always dive into that too.
Are we there yet?
Are we there yet?